Yo folks and friends, RC here. Today we're using Kyogre to take on Master Rank. Kyogre, you say? You absolute madman. Such a rare anti-meta pick. But hold on, bear with me here. We're going to be utilizing a common Pokémon in an uncommon way to catch our opponents unawares. Generally, when you see Kyogre, it'll be running timid or modest with speed support, and potentially even a choice scarf to get those juicy water spouts off as quickly as possible. But we're going to be flipping that with a min-speed Trick Room Kyogre. It's quiet with a 0 speed IV, and is also holding a Macho Brace to cut its speed in half. This combination of speed reducing factors allows our Kyogre to underspeed a lot of common threats in Series 8, including outspeeding all other restricted mons when Trick Room is up. Even min-speed Calyrex Ice Rider is outsped, which is absolutely hilarious. I've even had them set up Trick Room for me, only to be outsped and take a full-powered water spout to the muzzle. The only way any opposing Restricto is going to get the drop on Kyogre once Trick Room is up is if they're also holding either a Macho Brace or an Iron Ball. So, without further ado, let's get into the battles, We're going to be starting off with a battle against James today, and he is bringing Dialga and a Gyarados. That's something you don't see very often in this day and age. Dialga is a restricted Pokemon that generally Kyogre has a lot of trouble dealing with. Most of its attacks just tickle it, and the best it can hope for is a neutral Ice Beam, which does next to nil. So I thought this would be a good battle to highlight, the effectiveness of this team and how you can play around even matchups against other restricteds that normally don't go to your favor. So they're leading with Dialga, Grimmsnarl, which is not too surprising. I'm going to lead with Zapdos and my own Grimmsnarl. This is a lead I often go with just to help soften things up, and then I can clean up in the back once I get Trick Room set up. Obviously Zapdos itself doesn't like Trick Room, so turn 1 here I'm just going to detect and set up Light Screen on my end, just to see what they're going to do, because sometimes Grimmsnarl likes to trick full Incense, or if they're feeling especially spunky, a Lagging Tail. But yeah, that's the thing with Grimmsnarl, is it has multiple different sets and you really don't know which one it's going to be, so it's pretty irritating in best of ones until you can figure that out. So yeah, we're just going to protect ourselves. They are also going to set up a Light Screen, so we'll set up a Light Screen of our own here. Erect the barriers! So that sucks for us because that's going to severely weaken the damage output from our end, since we have almost all special attackers that we brought anyway. Going to go for the max Steel Spike. We live because the Light Screen was set up, and their defense is going to raise, which really doesn't matter. The only physical attacker I brought is Bronzong, so that'll be fine. So here we're just going to go with Fake Tears and Max Flare into Dialga. I know it's not going to KO it, especially since they have Light Screen up, but it wouldn't anyway. But the idea is I just want to soften it enough and stall out as much of its Dynamax as possible so that the guys in the back can come out, set up Trick Room, and clean up later on. That's a big burb. And so we Dynamax here, get our Fake Tears off. They also get their Fake Tears off. This is pretty funny because so far Grimmsnarls are just 1-in-1 and mimicking the exact same turns. So we'll cry profusely into that big boy and get our Max Flare off here. And by the power of the sun, take a big old chunk there, set up the Sunlight, which could power up any future Max Flares we decide to go for. It won't hinder Kyogre at all, since it's just going to overwrite that once it comes out anyway. So Grimmsnarl goes down to another Steel Spike. They get another completely useless defense boost. But that's fine. Grimmsnarl did its job. It got Light Screen up. Didn't get a chance to get Reflect, but that should be fine. I'm not super worried about it, especially since we got Bronzong coming out, which is physically defensive, and they only have a Spirit Break as a physical attacking move, so yeah, I'm not too worried about that. So it really doesn't matter what I do here, because I'm pretty sure Zapdos is going to go down at this point. So I'm just going to try to hit the Grimmsnarl and get another Fake Tears, going into old Zapdos, get some good damage off on the Grimmsnarl there, just to ensure that Kyogre in the back, when it comes out, it can KO it with Water Spout, because it would really suck if it lived and continued its Grimmsnarly shenanigans all over the place. So we're actually in a pretty good position here. It may not seem like it because we haven't KO'd anything, and in fact they've KO'd half of our team. That crit absolutely mattered. No, it didn't matter at all. I very highly doubt Zapdos would have lived that regardless. So Zapdos goes down. This is actually good for us because we're setting up Trick Room, which Zapdos absolutely does not like. And we get a free switch in to our Trick Room Kyogre. So here comes the VIP itself. Kyogre's busting out here. And we'll override that sun. Doesn't help us anymore, so we'll get some nice rain drizzling on in here. And we successfully stalled out their Dynamax, which is just great. And Kyogre can actually clean up the Grimmsnarl. I don't think it'll finish off the Dialga, so we got just a little more chip coming in from Body Press on the Bronzong here. We get Fake Tears into Kyogre, which could be scary later on, but it shouldn't matter this turn because neither of them are making it out of this turn alive. So we activate its weakness policy. Again, won't matter. Even if this were a min speed, negative, speed nature, Dialga, it wouldn't matter because we have the Macho Brace. Which is very nice. It's like a choice scarf in Trick Room, and yet you can actually freely switch between moves still. I think it's underutilized and underappreciated as a Trick Room mechanic. Anyway, we clean them right off the board, which is exactly what we were hoping to do. And at this point, my opponent is like, okay, that's a slow Kyogre. Yes, it is. So here comes Mr. Lake of Rage himself. And something that gets enraged via Berserk. So I know that I can't take out this Gyarados in one Water Spout, and I don't know what it's going to be doing. Hopefully it's not going to Dragon Dance, because that would really harm them under Trick Room. So we're just going to protect and get an Iron Defense on Bronzong, just so that the chip that it causes with Body Press can be a little more significant. Even though it's not very effective against Gyarados, it should chunk it rather nicely, and really this Bronzong doesn't have anything to worry about from Gyarados. So we get the Fiery Wrath coming on. We have Light Screen up still, so Bronzong will live, thankfully, barring a crit, which they don't get. And actually, it would have lived anyway, even without a crit. Or even with a crit, rather, excuse me. So now we just bust out the Water Spout. We'll Body Press the Moltres, just to make sure. It's definitely the scarier of the two if it lives, because it can take out Bronzong, so even though I saw that Gyarados had Power Whip, even if Kyogre goes down, Bronzong can probably 1v1 the Gyarados with relative ease. So I activate the Berserk, so we have double Rage, but it doesn't matter because it's just getting swept away just like that by the Spout of Great Waters. And down goes the Dark Bird. So now Gyarados decides to switch targets. I don't know why they didn't go for another Power Whip. Maybe they were afraid it would miss, which is a very justified fear, honestly. And we're going to double into there, see if we can't take it out. Gyarados has a really cool shiny. I've always liked that red hue for it, especially since it's anger-oriented. I think it suits it nicely. So we'll Body Press there. It's not very effective, but we did get a Iron Defense up, so it actually does a pretty significant amount. And then single target Water Spout, and oof, not enough to take it out. Gyarados actually has really good special defense. So gets the Power Whip, and it misses, which I don't think that would have mattered anyway, even if it had hit its non-stab, and this Kyogre has max HP, and even if it had KO'd it, I don't think it can 1v1 Bronzong even at this point. I could be wrong, I didn't do the calc. Rain is up, but this Bronzong does have max HP and max defense, so I think it's pretty likely it would live. And they just canceled the match, and there you go. Very good example. We see Dialga taking a massive amount of humiliation from something that it normally counters. And so that's that. Let's move on to the next one. Next up, we're going against Japanese player whose name I can't read. And they are rocking a Palkia team. And this is another good example of how you can work with this team, because Palkia is another restricted that Kyogre absolutely does not want to see ever. It can't touch it, and it quadruple resists Water Spout, which is all Kyogre really wants to do in life, is just Water Spout all over the opponent's face. So they are leading off with the Palkia and Tyranitar, which is another blast from the past. You don't see that very often in this day and age. which is funny because it used to be everywhere, but then Urshifu became a thing and it just dropped off the planet. We're going to detect while we get light screen up, because Palkia is the scarier of the two, and it switches out, so I could have gone with Reflect first, but hindsight's 20/20. But we're protecting Zapdos either way, and I'm not really too concerned about this damage output onto the Grimmsnarl. So we'll get our light screen up. I guess that'll come in handy for future use, since we only have physical Mons on the field on their end right now. And we got the predicted Rock Slide coming in, just throwing stones all over the place like some kind of punk. And the Ferrothorn comes in. I thought that was an interesting switch because Zapdos generally carry Heat Wave. In fact, I don't think I've ever come across a Zapdos that didn't have Heat Wave. So I'm like, well, this is probably just bait. They're probably going to switch back into Palkia and quadruple resist this. But on the other hand, if I don't take it out now, it can start leech seeding and causing all sorts of really annoying plays. So I'm going to just call their bluff and Max Flare into this spot while I set up the Reflect with the Grimmsnarl. And even if they do switch in the Palkia, so be it. At least I get rid of this sand, which is boosting the Tyranitar special defense. So now we got both of our screens up, which is always a nice thing to see. And the Flare comes out, and they did not switch, so I don't know if they didn't think I would have it because I was on a rain team, or they were just making some prediction. That crit absolutely did not matter, by the way. That Max Flare would have killed 1,000 Ferrothorn. So it's gone, which is great. Get that thing out of here. Kyogre really doesn't like that thing either, so... And we have Grimmsnarl avoiding the Rock Slide here. I'd rather it avoided Zapdos, but either way I'm not too worried. It didn't chunk off all that much. Plus, we don't want Zapdos to overstay its welcome, because as I mentioned in the last battle, it is not a fan of Trick Room, so generally you want it to be gone by the time you're entering the late game phase of the team and set Trick Room up. So in comes the Master of Space itself. So we're just gonna fake Tears and max Airstream right into that bad boy, just to make sure that we outspeed it, since it has the exact same base speed as Zapdos, so I don't know if they're running timid. I am, but just to make sure here. And they are going to Dynamax their big boy, which is a good choice. I probably would have done the same if I were in their position, and knowing that I have Kyogre in the back. We're gonna fake Tears right on that guy, like tears in the ocean. How does fake Tears work on a water type anyway? So we get the max Airstream into it. Does a massive chunk of damage. I'm very happy with that. If it hadn't Dynamaxed, it easily would have just been felled in one swoop. So we'll boost our speed, and another Rock Slide incoming. Could have seen that from a mile away. And a max Wyrmwind onto the Zapdos, obviously. And you wouldn't max Wyrmwind a fairy type. And we actually live with 3 HP, which is absolutely fantastic, because it not only means we get one more attack off, it also means that we get to go out on our own terms and get a free switch in. So here I'm going to max guard, because if I were them, I would definitely max guard the Palkia and finish off the Zapdos with the Tyranitar and get that out of the way. That seems like the biggest brain play. So I'm going to predict them to do that, and if worst case, scenario comes up, it doesn't really cost me much. And I am correct, as they do in fact max guard, which is wonderful, because it also means that they're not going to be able to protect next turn unless they're just going to do a roll. Grimmsnarl takes a bit more takes a bit more chip, and we lose our Dynamax, which is fine. We know we're going to outspeed it because we had that Airstream off. And I'm just going to do fake Tears here. I probably could have KO'd it with just Thunderbolt, but there really isn't anything better that we could be doing in this situation with Grimmsnarl. We can't fake Tears Tyranitar, so it actually switches out. They want to preserve that, which again is smart. They know I have Kyogre and they don't want it to drop just yet. They switch in Volcarona, which makes me very glad that I actually did fake Tears, because this thing is going all the way down. I'm wondering if it has Focus Sash for Focus Sash Rage Power shenanigans, but we see here it does not, so it just gets dropped in one hit as a sacrificial lamb to preserve the Palkia. And Zapdos goes down. This is also good because we're entering the end game here, so we do want these Pokemon to get off the field. They serve their purpose. And Grimmsnarl's like, alright, I'm leaving. Let me just grab my check. So we get a free switch in here to both Bronzong and Kyogre. Just what we wanted to see. We'll get rid of that sun. We don't need it anymore. And and they're sending the Palkia back in, and we're now down to 2v2 here. So at this point, the play is going to seem very familiar. If you remember from the last video, we are going to wait for that rain animation, and it's just simple Protect and Trick Room. And from here, we're in pretty good situation to just clean up the enemy. Just clean sweep with a torrential downpour of watery spouts. So we got the Rock Slide coming in, as expected. This Tyranitar hasn't done anything but Rock Slide the entire battle, and I was wondering if it was choiced, but I don't think so, because it's just not causing enough damage to be choice banded. So we're going to go for an Origin Pulse here, because we got flinched and did not set up Trick Room, and I don't want to click Water Spout and cause like 2 damage if I take too much damage on this turn. Flinching is a very annoying thing, and unfortunately it's one of the only things that prevents this Bronzong from setting Trick Room, outside of KOing it, because it does have Mental Herb. So we easily live that Spatial Rend, because we do have max health, and Kyogre has very high max base HP, and we finally find out what Tyranitar's been holding, and it was that Focus Sash that I thought may have been on Volcarona, but surprise, was on Tyranitar. I don't think I've ever seen a Focus Sash Tyranitar in my life, but here we are. So, finally get the Trick Room off, thinking about Origin Pulse, then I can't risk a miss, there's really no point even, and they just cancel the battle, and that's that. So, we've taken on Palkia, we've taken on Dialga, and pretty good highlight if I do say so myself, and I did. Here's the rental code if any of you want to try this team out yourself. This is a ranked /VGC legal team, so you can use it to ladder or get to Master Ball or what have you. Do keep in mind though that I have very limited space in how many rental codes I can host at a time, so if you're watching this video later rather than sooner, there is a good chance that the code has been taken down, so I apologize about that. The code will also be in the description of the video if you want to get it that way. And go nuts with it. You can test out some of the Pokemon that weren't highlighted in this, such as the Assault Vest Ferrothorn, a taunt bait kind of situation that it conjures is pretty fun as well, because like Kyogre, they expect it to do one thing and it does something completely different. It's kind of like Kartana with an Assault Vest, but more appropriate for Trick Room and can still take special hits relatively well, as long as they're not fire. That's going to be the end of this video. Thank you for tuning in all the way to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to drop a like and comment if you're feeling especially sociable. Subscribe, hit the bell notification, perform a ritualistic rain dance, or whatever else YouTube's barbaric algorithm demands to make my content visible. If you made it this far into the video, leave a comment asking, "What about the Ditto?" And that's all I've got this time. Adios.